Starting off this countdown, we have Miley Cyrus. Apparently Miley Cyrus has never been a fan of Mariah Carey. In a 2016 Elle cover story, Miley said, and I quote, "I've never really been a fan because it's so much about Mariah Carey. That's part of her shtick. I can see through it. That's part of what makes her a gay icon. Like, it's about Mimi, it's about what she's wearing, and it's about her." Miley continued on saying, "What I make isn't about me, it's about sharing my story. It's about someone being connected to what I'm saying. That's why you don't see me like on the side of buses selling I mean, what am I gonna do, sell makeup?" And that was a jab towards Mariah and her deal with MAC Cosmetics holiday line. Yikes, Miley went off. Coming in at number 9, we have Madonna. This might just be the worst insult someone could ever receive. Back in the 1990s, Madonna said that she'd rather kill herself than be Mariah Carey. She then proceeded on saying that Mariah wasn't the brightest. Continuing on, in 1996 in an interview with Spin, Madonna said that Mariah's work is anything other than serious art. Wow, Madonna did not hold back at all. In our 8th spot, we have Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is an American music executive and producer. He was the chairman and CEO of Sony Music Entertainment for nearly 15 years. Now he's in charge of Casablanca Records with Universal. He is also Mariah Carey's ex-husband. After the two split, things got messy for Mariah. He literally tried to sabotage her and destroy her career. He must have really hated her in order for him to do that. Like, for example, the whole J-Lo and Mariah feud is said to be started because of him. It started when J-Lo released a song with a sample that Mariah was already using. Another time, Mariah was planning to do a slow duet with Ja Rule, but J-Lo managed to do one first before her. This was all arranged by Tommy behind the scenes. It got so bad that Mariah actually had to end her contract with Sony.
Making his way into number 7 is Spencer Pratt. Seems like a really random feud since they come from two totally different worlds, one being a Hollywood actor and another coming from MTV reality shows. But in 2017 she landed the cover of Vogue, and during her interview she said that her house was flooded with crystals. She said when she first moved in there were crystals everywhere and she asked to get rid of them ASAP because she hates them. She said, "Please get rid of these. I don't want people to come over here and think I'm a crazy crystal person." This is where Spencer Pratt came in. He is one of those crazy crystal people, as she called them. After the Vogue interview was out, he went on the defensive and announced that he felt personally attacked by her comments. He did an interview with The Morning Breath and said, "She was talking about me in Vogue, like 100% I'm the crazy crystal person she's clowning, so I'll see her. We'll bump into each other at the Beverly Hills Hotel like I see all the A-listers and they run from me." Honestly, I don't think she was talking about you. I don't think she cares. Really? Like in the Vogue interview, I don't think she's thinking of Spencer Pratt. No offense.
In our 6th spot, we have Demi Lovato. According to Demi Lovato, Mariah Carey is rude, and that's why Demi doesn't like her. It started back in June of 2016. A meme was going around showing Mariah next to Ariana Grande. The photo was captioned "when you order it online versus when it arrives," suggesting that Ariana is nothing compared to Mariah. Well, Demi saw this and commented, "You got it the wrong way around, honey." Later, Demi provided an explanation for what they meant by this. Demi said, "Mariah is a legend and so talented, but constantly disses people. It's nasty the way she treats Jennifer. I'm afraid to say the woman is mean for no reason. Extremely talented? Yes. Superhuman? Possibly. Unnecessarily rude? Absolutely." Mariah didn't take this lightly and she played the whole "I don't know them" card, and then told Demi to introduce themselves and share their opinions face to face.
At number 5, Liam Gallagher. I think that the one thing that James Corden is best known for is his carpool karaoke segment on his late night show. Over the series of episodes he's done, he's sung with everyone from One Direction to Adele to Migos and more. But even though the show reaches out to many artists, some of them have refused to participate in the segment, like Liam Gallagher, for example. Liam is the former singer for the band Oasis, and he told GQ magazine back in 2017 about how he was invited to film an episode of Carpool Karaoke with James Corden, and he flat out refused. Going more in depth into why he refused, Liam said, quote, "No thank you very much, no effing chance, mate. With that fat bloke from Kevin and Perry, James Corden is a knobhead," end quote. Clearly he doesn't like James very much, but no one really knows why. Maybe it's personal, or maybe he just doesn't like James's vibes or something. Either way, Carpool Karaoke with Oasis is never gonna happen.
Coming in our 4th spot, we have Christina Christina Aguilera. In 2006, Christina Aguilera revealed to GQ an unpleasant experience she had with Mariah at a party. She said, and I quote, "One time we were at a party and I think she got really drunk, and she had some really derogatory things to say to me." That's not good. But of course, Mariah responded and threw a lot of shade back at Christina. Mariah said, "I had hoped that Christina was in a better place now than the last time I saw her, when she showed up uninvited at one of my parties and displayed questionable behavior." She continued on saying, "It is sad yet predictable that she would use my name at this time to reinvent past incidents for her promotional gain. It is in my heart to forgive and I will keep her in my prayers." Hot damn, Mariah. If you come for her, it's pretty clear that she's gonna just come right back at ya.
At number 3, Pierce Brosnan. You know when you meet someone who just rubs you the wrong way? Well, this is apparently how Pierce Brosnan felt about James Corden, because they had a run-in at a concert one time and it seemingly wasn't a pleasant experience. During an episode of The Late Late Show in 2017, James Corden spilled the tea about a celebrity that he thought was rude during their segment of Spill Your Guts or Fill Your Guts. That night's guest, Khloe Kardashian, asked James about his worst experience with a celebrity, and James told the viewers about a run-in that he had with Pierce at a concert while with his wife. James said, quote, "I went to see U2 and Pierce Brosnan was there with some friends, and they left halfway through the gig to go off, so me and my wife moved into this area, and literally this arm went on here and pushed me out of the way. I looked at him like that and he didn't even glance at me," end quote. So basically, Pierce left his section for a bit and James moved in, but when Pierce got back, he shoved James out of the way. There was never really an explanation as to why Pierce shoved James, but clearly he just doesn't like the guy. You don't always have to have a reason, but I just wonder what prompted Pierce to do that.
In our second spot, we have Eminem. This feud seems so random, like Mariah and Eminem, like it's a random duo. It all started in 2002 when Eminem made reference to Mariah in his song Superman. In the song he says, and I quote, "What you trying to be, my new wife? What, you Mariah? Fly through twice." He continues on saying, "I beg Mariah to take me back." But according to Mariah, the two never dated or hooked up. She said they talked on the phone and hung out around 4 times. A year later, Mariah was on tour and parodied Eminem. In her song Clown, she has the lines, and I quote, "You should have never imitated We Were Lovers, when you know very well we never even touched each other." Then in 2005, Eminem responded by playing voicemails from Mariah. So on and so on, it just keeps going on. Eminem's all like, "Babe, we had something going on," and Mariah's like, "Nah, nice try." And in our number 1 spot, we have Jennifer Lopez, but we don't know her. This has to be the most famous Mariah feud of all time. It all started back in the early 2000s when Mariah was interviewed by a foreign TV station. One of the questions they asked was about several pop stars, her rivals, and what she thought about them. She begins with Beyonce and she says that she's nice and a good writer. When asked about Jennifer Lopez though, she says, "I don't know her." And that, my friends, is how the "I don't know her" Mariah meme was created. Over the years, the two have both subtly thrown shade at each other while still downplaying the feud.
Kicking off this list at number 10 is Miley Cyrus. If you followed her past relationship with Liam Hemsworth at all, then you probably remember the alleged love triangle between Miley, Liam, and Jennifer. That's not a triangle, that's a diamond. Rumors spread like wildfire when the Hunger Games first came out, with people suggesting that Jen and Liam had something between them off the big screen. For years, no one really knew if it was true or not, but then Jen confirmed it for fans in December of 2015. She went on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen and admitted to making out with Liam off set. Andy asked her if they have ever kissed when the cameras weren't rolling, and Jennifer's response was, "Liam and I grew up together. Liam's real hot. What would you have done?" "Yeah, I have." Reports say this is actually why Miley and Liam got back together after their first initial split, because Miley got jealous and thought she might lose him to Jen. Now, how much of this is true, we won't really know, but Jen confirmed that she and Liam had a little something something, and that is something I've always wondered personally. So, glad it was confirmed. Up next, number 9 is Jared Leto. She had some sort of weird tension with the actor back in 2014, and it all came out at the Oscar Awards. She took the stage to present the the award for Best Actor and called out someone in the audience by asking, "What? Is this funny?" Turns out the mystery audience member was Jared Leto. He explained what happened later on and said that Ellen DeGeneres was on the sidelines making jokes that had him, his mom, and his brother all cracking up and laughing. When asked about if he felt bad interrupting Jennifer unintentionally, he made sarcastic comments like, "I guess we don't have any manners." To top it all off, he was then asked about Jen's famous fall when she tumbled up the stage to accept her award at the Oscars, and Jared responded by saying, "You know, I'm starting to wonder if this is a bit of an act." We're not sure what the tension is between them, but there is a lot of sarcasm between the two of them. They both just seem like very sarcastic people though, in general. Cruising into number 8 is Joan Rivers. Back in November 2013, Jen did an interview with the Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer and was asked about body positivity. One man asked her a question on behalf of his daughter and said, "Having experienced body image criticism in Hollywood, what is your advice to young girls dealing with the same treatment from their peers and your response to those who judge others based on appearances?" Jen responded by saying, "Screw those people," and went on to call out Joan Rivers' show Fashion Police. She called out the show and said that shows like that are showing younger generations of young people to judge other people based on things like their appearance, and that it is wrong. Joan wasn't too impressed with her comment, and she took her thoughts to Twitter. Some of her tweets said, "It's funny how Jennifer Lawrence loved the show during awards season when we were complimenting her every single week. She actually even went on to make a joke about Jen's famous Oscar fall and said that she tripped over her own arrogance." Shots fired. Although I don't fully agree with that show either. You're literally judging someone on their appearance. That's the entire show.
At number 7, Ricky Whittle. Actor Ricky Whittle, best known for his roles on The 100 and American Gods, isn't a fan of James Corden after he called the late night host out for comments that he made about a show that the two of them had once starred in. Ricky used to be on a British soap opera called Hollyoaks, and back in 2000, James was a guest star on one of the episodes. Years later, when asked about his time on the show, James had nothing positive to say about it. He told sources about his experience on the show saying, quote, "I'd actually rather die than go back. It's effing awful. It just breeds all these people walking around in this chicken in a basket fame, talking about going to LA, you know?" End quote. Ricky did not appreciate the shade that James threw at the show that gave them both their start, and so he clapped back at James where he said, quote, "It's very childish that he's slating the place where he came from, the place that made him. Good luck to him. I hope he doesn't bump into us on a night out." End quote. I think it's safe to say that Ricky is not a fan at all.
In spot number 6 is Chloe Sevigny. Now I know I probably said that wrong, so just forgive me and move on from it, okay? The actress didn't hold back when sharing her thoughts on Jennifer Lawrence and was honest about it during an interview in 2015. She sat down with V Magazine and asked if she ever worries about being typecast. After admitting that she does, she explained herself and said, "They'll have a really peppy funny girl on the talk show rounds and everybody adores her and loves her and wants to be her, and then so many more people want to watch the movie or TV show." She then went on to name a couple of A-listers who she admires and one that she could do without. That one? It's Jennifer Lawrence. Her exact words were, "Jennifer Lawrence I find annoying, too crass." We're not sure why she targeted Jen in the interview. No reports surfaced about them having any kind of tension towards one another, so it still remains a mystery. The amount of times I've been called annoying in my life, I just take it as a compliment at this point.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Jenny McCarthy. After Mariah Carey's New Year's Eve failed performance, actress Jenny McCarthy had much to say on her SiriusXM radio show. She went on to say that Mariah blaming the production company for her performance was incredibly insulting. Apparently, Mariah didn't even participate in soundcheck, where she could have tested out if everything was working properly, so that's on her. Furthermore, Jenny said, and I quote, "I mean, her voice is not there anymore. I don't believe there was a problem with her inner ears. I just don't. I think she used it as an excuse." You heard me correctly. Jenny thinks that Mariah was never going to be able to sing in the first place, so she made up excuses that her earpiece wasn't working. I'm not sure what Mariah said in response to that, but knowing her, she probably threw some shade right back at Jenny.
Taking over spot number 4 is Kim Kardashian. This one seemed like a lot of miscommunication or an issue that was never an issue, but the media made it look like one. I'm still not really sure. Jen has made it clear for a long time now that she's obsessed with the Kardashians, and she even started having a friendship with Kris Jenner. According to a source who spoke to Radar Online, Kim started to have enough of Jen's attention. Reports claim that Kim went into a jealous rage over the close relationship that was developing between her mom and Jen. The source said, I quote, "Kim was always Chris's favorite until Jennifer crashed the scene. She was waltzing into the family's world, acting like a superstar and upsetting the order with her loud chaos. Chris says she's a hoot and treats her like the blonde daughter she never had. The sunshine walks with Jennifer in Chris's eyes, and Kim is fed up and doesn't know what to do." No one is sure if any of this is true because things seemed to be okay between them when Jennifer interviewed Kim on Jimmy Kimmel Live when she took over his show. It seemed very normal to me, but that could always just be an act. I'm really not sure.
In our third spot, we have Nicki Minaj. Mariah and Nicki's beef was very public. It happened when the two were judges together on American Idol season 12. The two came for each other multiple times on the show. Multiple. But before the first episode even aired, 2 clips from the show surfaced online. One is a video where Nicki just snaps. She says, and I quote, "I told them I'm not putting up with her effing highness no more. I'm not gonna sit here every effing minute to have you come down and harass me every minute every day." So we already knew that having them as judges together was going to be juicy. Plus there were so many times throughout the season where the two would just make snarky remarks at each other. There even was a rumor going around that Nicki threatened Mariah with a gun, but Nicki and the producers denied these claims.
Next up at number 2, we have J-Lo. This feud was never really a feud, but people didn't know that right away until J-Lo cleared it up once the media had turned it into something. During a visit to The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon back in 2014, Jennifer Lawrence treated the audience to a party story that included Jimmy and J-Lo. She revealed that she was drunk and she and Jimmy both saw J-Lo and they said they wanted to ask her to dance, so they made a plan that they would do a spin and say, "Dance with us." Turns out Jimmy chickened out, so Jen was left to do it on her own, but she got the cold shoulder from J-Lo. She did the spin, asked her to dance, and J-Lo replied with, "No, I think I'm gonna observe." Obviously, Jen was devastated, as I would be, so the media ran with that story. But J-Lo cleared things up with Access Hollywood and said that she told Jen, "I'm good right here," only because it was really crowded at the moment, so she just literally wanted to stay right there in that area. She cleared it up though by saying that she would have loved to dance with Jen, so kind of a big misunderstanding. In the number 1 spot is Lindsay Lohan. In December 2015, while promoting Joy on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Jen stirred up some controversy with a dig at Lindsay. Colbert praised her for being a star who's willing to talk about the things that aren't so glamorous and asked her about getting sick while shooting Joy in Boston. Jen candidly talked about how she got a stomach virus and was puking a lot. During her story time, she said, "I just keep going until eventually my body is just like, if we don't make her barf or pass out, she won't stop. I get like Lindsay Lohan grade exhaustion, but without any drugs or alcohol." Immediately afterwards, Lindsay's sister Aliana jumped to her defense on Twitter and wrote, "I never breathe life into negativity, but I stand by my family. Disappointed in Jennifer Lawrence? Not cool." Lindsay ended up chiming in saying, "Thank you, sister. Maybe who you're referring to should learn to support others." Lindsay's mom then later told Entertainment Tonight that they have all been a fan of Jennifer's and her movies, and that it was very disappointing to see her trash talk Lindsay like that. I mean, I agree. Not a cool comment.
At number 10, Bill Maher. I'm sure we are all familiar with how outspoken Bill Maher is. He's said some things in the past that people have no doubt taken offense to, but after one comment that he made, it seems as though he's made an enemy with James Corden, and now they just don't like each other. Back in 2019, Bill made some offensive comments about weight, where he said, quote, "Fat shaming doesn't need to end, it needs to make a comeback. Some amount of shame is good. Shame is the first step in reform," end quote. When James saw this, he took the first 8 minutes of his Late Show episode to discuss the comments that Bill made, where he said, quote, "So I sat at home and I'm watching this and all I could think of was like, oh man, somebody needs to say something about this. If only there was someone with a platform who knew what it was really like to be overweight, and then I realized, oh, that's me. There's a common and insulting misconception that fat people are stupid and lazy, and we're not," end quote. Bill later responded to James's criticisms of his comments, essentially telling him that he was wrong to not shame people for their appearance, but he was pretty heated. People often have opposing views, but it looks like this is a feud that they won't really come out of. At number 9, Jack Allison. Jack Allison is a member of the Writers Guild of America and used to write for Jimmy Kimmel's show back in the day, so he knows his way around late night TV. So when he found out about the shady things that James was doing on his show, he had to call him out for it, and it was not pretty. According to Jack, he went to a WGA meeting for late night writers, and James showed up to said meeting to advocate for a lower pay grade for late night writers. Doesn't really sound like something to advocate for since it's affecting people's livelihoods, right? Jack alleged that since James showed up to the meeting without any other staffers from his show, that James made that trip to the meeting just for this request. Jack also alleged that James wanted to hire writers' assistants for 13-week periods so that he didn't have to pay them as much as a full-time contractor. He didn't think that this was fair at all, and so he decided to expose James on Twitter. James fired back online saying that this was all untrue, but Jack stuck to his story. I guess he really had it out for James because of how unfairly he wanted to treat his staff, and honestly, I can't blame him. Now before I carry on with this list, I would like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because it really does help the channel out and we appreciate your support. At number 8, Ricky Gervais. It's a common thing for comedians to take jabs at other comedians. It's really just part of the culture of comedy, but I feel like when it comes to Ricky Gervais and James Corden, the jabs that he makes aren't just for laughs, but there's actual hate fueling them as well. Even though they both rose to fame in similar ways, both getting their start on British television, then making their way into movies and hosting, Ricky still seems to have a distaste for James, and he makes that apparent at every moment he can by making jokes about the late night TV host. This first started back in 2009 when James portrayed Ricky on his show. I guess Ricky wasn't a fan of the way that he was played on TV because since then, he's been a little hostile towards James. One source commented on Ricky's feelings towards James when they said, quote, "Ricky is now somewhat obsessed, attacking James when his jokes fall flat and poking fun of his size," end quote. In recent years, Ricky has also made a few jabs at Corden's jokes about Harvey Weinstein as well as James's role in the movie Cats.
In our 7th spot, we have Nick Cannon. Although the ex-pair share kids together, they still aren't on the best of terms. In an interview, Nick said that Mariah is still mad at him for some things that he has done in the past. Plus, just recently when Nick got in trouble for making anti-Semitic comments, Mariah threw shade at him through a social media post. On Instagram, she posted a photo of her dog and captioned it, "Life's rough." She posted this hours after Nick got blasted, so people were like, ooh, that's for sure shade towards him.
At number 6, Artie Lang. Comedian Artie Lang seems to have a lot to say about a handful of Hollywood stars, especially those who have been associated with Howard Stern. Artie and Howard once worked together when he served as something of a sidekick to Stern on the Howard Stern Show back in 2001 to 2009, but he was forced to leave the show due to his substance abuse issues. It seems like the comedian carried that grudge with him for a long time because he really doesn't have anything nice to say about Howard or anyone else that he's worked with. For example, James Corden. Back in 2016, during Artie's podcast called Artie Quitter, the comedian started ripping on Stern, saying that he doesn't like how his comedy has changed from being more brash and abrasive to being more celebrity friendly, but then somehow he got into ripping on James Corden as well since he was a guest on Howard's show not too long before this episode of Artie's podcast. The comedian started making comments about James saying, quote, "When James Corden opens his fat effing mouth to do karaoke in a car, something that wouldn't be effing funny to the secretaries at an accounting firm and gets an Emmy for it, I'm allowed to say that he sucks," end quote. Those were some harsh words for someone who I don't think has ever been personally associated with, so I guess this is just him projecting his anger onto James, but the bottom line here is that he's certainly not a fan.
Halfway through at number 5 is Donald Trump Jr. Does he even count as a celebrity? Probably not, I don't know, but this is still a fun story that I wanted to include. I'm sure being the son of the former president who caused a ton of controversy would often have you in the middle of feuds for anyone who didn't like your dad. Jennifer told Oprah that she would want to meet Donald Trump and said, "I've got a pretty good speech," and it ends with a martini to the face. I have something to say for all of them. I watch different characters on the news and I'm like, you just wait. Not too long after that, Donald Trump Jr. had something to say to her. He went on Twitter and shared a link to the article with the headline, "Jennifer Lawrence, if I meet Trump, it'll end with a martini to the face," and he fired back and said, "I'm pretty sure that's not how it would end." Jen really didn't seem too bothered by his tweet, and she didn't bother tweeting back, which is probably for the best.
At number 4, Asia Argento and Rose McGowan. Sometimes it seems as though James Corden has trouble reading the room. Yes, he is a comedian, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be constantly cracking jokes, because there is an appropriate time and place for comedy, and you have to be mindful of that. James's lack of respect for the Me Too movement is the reason why Asia Argento and Rose McGowan hate James Corden so much, because after he made jokes about Harvey Weinstein at the height of his public takedown, they never saw him the same way. Back in 2017, James was hosting a black tie event for AIDS research where he did a little comedy monologue that seriously fell flat. He made several jokes about Weinstein, saying things like, quote, "This evening is so lovely that Weinstein already invited it up to his room for a massage," and quote, "It's been a weird week, hasn't it, watching Harvey Weinstein in hot water. Ask any of the women who watch him take a bath, it's weird watching Harvey Weinstein in hot water." Two Hollywood stars who were heavily involved in exposing Weinstein for his crimes, Asia Argento and Rose McGowan, took serious offense to James's jokes, and they had some harsh words for him, calling the comedian an effing piglet and saying, quote, "Shame on this pig and everyone who grunted with him," end quote. There are just some things that you shouldn't joke about, and the situation with Weinstein was certainly one of those things.
Type at number 3 spot is Lala Kent. It's no secret that Jen speaks her mind and doesn't normally beat around the bush. But people were surprised to see some of the comments she made on Watch What Happens Live regarding Lala Kent. During the interview, she called her a C-word, because I cannot say that word. But apparently it was in a joking manner. Whether it was a joke or not, Kent didn't take too kindly to it and went on Twitter to talk about it. She sent out a bunch of tweets that have since been deleted. A month after, she went on a podcast to talk about it, and she made comments saying Jen's last 2 films were fails, and said she's the type of chick who would give Harvey Weinstein favors for roles. Honestly, that was just the tip of the iceberg of the comments she made. She went in very hard on the actress, even picking apart her appearance. However, Jen still stands by the fact that she was joking in her initial interview. I mean, I don't get the joke. When I'm joking, I don't use that word, but okay.
At number 2, Patrick Stewart. While at an award show back in 2010, Patrick Stewart exchanged some quips with James Corden and really dug into the way that he was presenting at the show that evening. James was hosting the 2010 Glamour Women of the Year award, and when Patrick took the stage, he took the opportunity to criticize the way James had been hosting, where he said, quote, "When the presenters are up here and when the recipients are receiving their awards, don't stand at the back of the stage with your hands in your pockets, looking around as though you wish you were anywhere but here," end quote. James tried to quip back, saying that the people accepting the awards should just hurry up. Then Patrick replied saying, quote, "From where I was sitting, I can see your belly, and that was right there at the back of the room." To which James then replied saying, quote, "You can see my belly and we can all see you dying right now." End quote. It was just a really messy back and forth situation, but you could kind of tell that Patrick was frustrated with James and that he just really doesn't like him very much. And finally, at number 1, Hollywood. Now I know this isn't necessarily a celebrity, but I would argue that much of Hollywood doesn't like James Corden. Though yes, he's getting booked for a lot of roles these days, a lot of movie critics have some harsh words for the comedian. One of the most recent negative criticisms that James received from a number of sources came from his performance in the movie Prom. A lot of people didn't like his portrayal of the character, and many took offense because of the way the character was played, because James seemed to have laid into a lot of gay stereotypes while in character. On top of that, James has been criticized for other roles like his character in the movie Cats, and even his hosting of the Friends reunion. There are a lot of people who think that he's just doing the absolute most in Hollywood, and it's not good, so a lot of people just don't like him for that.